I heard you beat up a bunch of teenagers.
I didn't beat up any teenagers. I kicked the crap out of a bunch of assholes who deserved it.
Cobra Kai. Now, Cobra Kai is the continuing chapter in the Karate Kid franchise. It used to air on YouTube's very own streaming service, but now it finally moved over to Netflix, and I'm very happy about it. Because guess what? I spent the last 4 days binging 2 seasons, and it was awesome. I know, generally speaking, I don't like to give away the fact that I liked or disliked something in the beginning, but I couldn't help it because Cobra Kai is fascinating. This is going to be a very different video because, as you guys already know, I liked it. So now I'm just going to tell you what this show is about, why you should watch it, what it gets right, what so many other franchises don't get right. So Cobra Kai picks up, I believe, 34 years after the end of the first Karate Kid film. You know, when Daniel kicked Johnny's ass?
You want to get technical? I kicked his face.
You're actually absolutely right, Daniel. It was, in fact, his face. And this time around, we focus on Johnny, played by William Zabka. Is that how you pronounce his name? I got the cast list right here. I suck with names. Yeah, it's William Zabka. And for the very first time, we see his side of the story, and he is at his lowest low. He's a loser by the end of the first episode. He's unemployed, he's divorced, he's got an estranged son, and his mindset is still stuck in the 80s, which is why he is the way he is. And that is the first thing I love about this show. The character of Johnny is fucking incredible. First of all, he's not PC, which is a lot of fun, and he shouldn't be PC because he used to be the villain. And even though this show really shows us that there is no such thing as a villain, but he's still stuck in the 80s, so naturally he doesn't give a shit about a lot of PC stuff that's out there right now.
If you're not aggressive, then you're being a pussy, and you don't want to be a pussy. You want to have balls.
Don't you think you're doing a lot of genderizing?
What?
Oh, sorry. Don't you think you're doing a lot of genderizing, sensei?
No, what the hell are you talking about?
Anyhow, he spends his nights drinking and pitying himself, thinking about the glory days, when lo and behold, the boy next door, called Miguel, is being bullied, picked on, and beaten up by some assholes. Once they touch Johnny's car, he snaps and beats the living shit out of these kids. And this is where Miguel fawns over Johnny. He wants to learn all the karate skills. He wants him to be his Mr. Miyagi. And while hesitant at first, once he is reintroduced to Daniel, he's like, fuck it, that rivalry still bothers me, and I'm gonna reopen Cobra Kai. So he does, and he becomes an icon for the downtrodden, for the bullied, and he takes these children under his wing, which is something that I love because we were always wondering, all those Cobra Kai kids in the original, were they always assholes? Did something happen to them? Why were they the way they were? And in this show, we realized that most of these Cobra Kai kids are victims of bullying, and he just helps them because Johnny has a no-nonsense approach to karate. He has his rules: strike first, strike hard, no mercy. And it's super funny that he becomes this drill sergeant for these kids. And what I love about this show, it would have been so easy to portray him as a straight up dick, or his philosophy as straight up bullshit or toxic. No, he's actually needed. He gives these kids self-confidence. He teaches them how to defend themselves. And yeah, he insults them every once in a while, but he only does it in order to motivate them, which is what I love. It is a philosophy that works. However, every now and then he does go too far, and sometimes some of his kids turn out to be bullies, like Hawk, for example. First time we meet the guy, he has a disfigured lip and he's being picked on by everyone. By the end of season 2, he's a straight up bully. But that's character development right there, but I'm getting ahead of myself. William Zabka kills it. He, to me, gives the best performance of the entire show. He gives a somber performance, but he also oozes self-confidence when needed. He can be funny, but he can also nail the dramatic scenes. And by the way, his recap of the original Karate Kid, portraying Daniel as the bad guy, is hilarious. Let's take a look.
Next thing I know, he's hitting on her. I see the two of them flirting with each other.
What do you do?
Oh, I walked over to have a civil conversation with Allie.
What is your problem?
Look, why don't you just take your little Cobra Kais and get out of here?
Oh, yeah, right. That's gonna solve everything.
But Larusso kept butting it.
What's going on? Yeah, just get...
All right.
Told him to get lost, mind your own business. Out of nowhere, the guy sucker punches me.
What an asshole.
I know, man. Larusso wouldn't leave it alone. At the Halloween dance, I'm sitting there minding my own business. He douses me with the water hose.
Which brings me to Daniel Larusso, because he's in the show also. And I was wondering, I was like, is he gonna be the big bad? Is he gonna be a dick? No, he isn't, even though every once in a while he does pull off some dick moves. Because once he sees the Cobra Kai dojo, it's like he's having post-traumatic stress or something. He wants to shut that shit down because he knows what kind of students come out of this dojo, the ones that used to pick on him. But Daniel is the flip side of the coin. Happily married, he's got a beautiful wife, beautiful house, 2 beautiful children, and yet something is missing in his life. He still mourns over the passing of Mr. Miyagi, and soon he decides to open his very own karate gym that he names after Miyagi. And this is a completely different approach. He teaches karate as an art form, as a way to only defend yourself, never strike first. And again, what I love about this show, we are introduced to both philosophies, and both philosophies have their strengths and their flaws, because sometimes Daniel is a little bit too passive. But overall, his approach is much more peaceful than Johnny's, and Ralph Macchio kills it. I mean, he steps so easily into the role that made him an icon. It's ridiculous. And I just found out that Ralph Macchio is actually 58 years old, which is ridiculous because I believe he does all of his own stunts. He still looks young, and it's so cool to see Daniel as a mentor figure, especially since I already talked about Miguel. Miguel is one of those rare cases where we think that he's going to be our new Daniel, but since Johnny is his trainer, at some point, he's also sort of a flawed character. He goes from being a bullied kid to a kid that sometimes oversteps his boundaries, that sometimes lashes out in aggression, in anger. Which brings me to Daniel's student that is actually Johnny's estranged son. And that is funny because he starts out as a criminal, but Daniel takes him in and shows him the Miyagi way. Initially, we have friction. They constantly throw something more at us to complicate the conflict, the rivalry between Daniel and Johnny even further. And it's absolutely phenomenal. Every single time these two characters meet, whether they try to become friends again or whether they're at each other's throat, it works and their chemistry is electric. Now let's talk about the younger cast because, again, they're all phenomenal. I mentioned Miguel. He gives a terrific performance because at first he's the downtrodden. We're like, yeah, I'm rooting for this guy. Once we see him participate in the first tournament, we're like, whoa, you're cheating. You're a dirty fighter. But then again, that's what Johnny taught you. But even Johnny feels bad about this because, as I said, this show is about gray areas. There are no good and evil. Johnny's son, on the other hand, Robbie, was someone where I was like, I don't know if I'm feeling this kid. Is this just going to be a troublemaker? No, he isn't. He is actually much more like Daniel was in the original. And I loved him. And the fact that Daniel's daughter, Samantha, is sort of caught up in a love triangle between Miguel and Robbie makes things even more complicated and delicious. Now, this show is both extremely funny and dramatic, to be honest. I wouldn't call it a flat-out comedy, even though when I saw the first couple of trailers, I was like, yeah, this is clearly a comedy and a satirical approach at the Karate Kid. It isn't. It isn't. I mean, part of it is, and there is nostalgia, and there's 80s cheese. But you know what? The 80s cheese works, and if cheese works, you got a cult hit because this show has already a mass cult following behind it. But what impressed me the most was the fact that all the characters work. The character development is super solid. All our main characters are layered. The kids, the adults, the bad guys, the good guys, the fact that there is no such thing as bad guys or good guys. And they even bring back Kreese from the original because that's the only character where I'm like, yeah, think you are a bad guy. As much as I was going on about the fact that Johnny is not the bad guy and neither is Daniel, Kreese might just be. He hasn't changed a bit. He's still an asshole. But what I love about it is that they also nail the dramatic moments and the theme of engaging in a rivalry. Because every single main character has a rival on the show. Johnny has Daniel. Miguel has Robbie. Samantha has Tori. And even the nerdy kid has Hawk. That is what I love, because we have all these conflicts that they're all interwoven into layered relationships and complicated relationships. Where I was like, yeah, this is almost as complicated as Game of Thrones in terms of connections between characters. But that's what I love about this show. And we do have some solid fan service, but it's never fan service for the sake of it. There are some clever flashbacks incorporated into the show. We do see Mr. Miyagi. We do see scenes from the original films, and they work perfectly. The soundtrack also, once again, great. A lot of 80s stuff and montage sequences, but that is what you want to see in these films, or in this case, in this series. What can I say? I was absolutely in love with both seasons. I can't even tell you whether I like the first one better or whether I like the second one better, because they were able to hold the standard, to keep the quality great, and this is entertainment at its best. It's one of the best shows I've seen in recent history, and it's also one of those rare cases where a franchise came back after years respecting the lore, respecting the characters, respecting everything that came before by simultaneously giving us something new, because I love all of the new characters, but I also love what they do with the old ones. Daniel and Johnny are still front and center, and they steal every scene they're in. They are still the characters that we know and love, or sometimes even loathe. But now we dive way deeper into their perspective characters. But by no means do I mean to discredit the new blood, because they are all awesome. And the last thing I need to mention is the action, because the hand-to-hand combat sequences are fucking perfection. I'm telling you, like, this is the best on-screen action in a Netflix show since Daredevil. I'm not even gonna lie. Combat sequences are fantastically choreographed and fantastically shot and edited, because yeah, they give us long shots, long takes. They don't use shaky cam or jump cuts to cover up the fact that our actors are not able to pull these things off. To sum it all up, Cobra Kai gets the gold medal. I'm telling you guys, this show blew me away. It's everything I want in a continuation of the Karate Kid. It's the show I never knew I needed, but now that I have it, I'm glad it's out there. I really can compare it to Ash vs. Evil Dead, a show that I will cover this Halloween. So Cobra Kai, are you fans? Let me know in the comment section below. Cobra Kai never dies. See you next time.